As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com.
The Bank of England declaring war on Bitcoin. What is that going to mean for the liberty and privacy of individuals in a cash society where they've been able to use cash to maintain privacy of transactions?
I read a lot of really boring economic journals, and one of the things that I've been reading about for a while in these journals is about the central bank in England, the Bank of England. And about, I guess maybe 2 weeks ago, maybe even this week, it started hitting the mainstream press. Wall Street Journal started running it. And as soon as Wall Street Journal starts running something, it's usually pretty early. They're usually early in the curve, straight from the academic world. So it tends to go from the academic world, and then it trickles down, and it usually gets to places like Wall Street Journal first, because they got reporters everywhere. And so what they do is they're coming out now and telling us, the Wall Street Journal and other sources, especially MIT, the MIT Review, they're saying that the Bank of England has now, they're telling the public, the Bank of England has created a Bitcoin-like system that can be controlled by central banks. So it's called RSCoin. And if you want to Google it, don't put a space in between. It's just RSCoin. It doesn't come up right now if you just type it in as separate words, but it's RSCoin. And you'll find all kinds of stories on RSCoin. The creation of RSCoin was initiated, and I'm presuming it was funded by the Bank of England. They worked together with the University College London, and what they did was they created a Bitcoin rival currency, but it's a little different. It's a little different than what Bitcoin is, in the fact that Bitcoin today has some serious restrictions and limitations. Bitcoin today can only process 7 transactions per second. So all around the world, if you have 7 transactions going on, Bitcoin transactions, 7 people are paying for a Bitcoin, something in Bitcoin, you can only have 7 of them doing that per second. Now that may or may not sound large. It all depends on your viewpoint, I guess. But if you consider Visa, Visa has 56,000. That's their max range, I guess. That's the amount that they could possibly do. They do about 2,000 per second normally. PayPal does about 100 per second. But Bitcoin can only do 7. And so this has been a severe limitation, and it's also been part of the reason why central banks have not only ignored it and tried to deny it, considering its libertarian leanings and its anarchy type of message, perhaps its anti-nation state and anti-central bank sentiment. So they have come up with a new one, and this new one can actually process 2,000 transactions per second. It's built on the same technology. It's built on the same blockchain technology as Bitcoin, but this one can do 2,000 transactions per second, and it also can clear almost instantaneously. We take Bitcoin at FTM daily, and so whenever a Bitcoin transaction takes place, it can take about 10 minutes. With Visa, it takes about 1 second. PayPal, about 1 second. And with this new RSCoin created by the Bank of England, it takes about 1 second. So it's very, very similar to the existing payment structure that's already out there. And you see, it's very appealing to the Bank of England, because the Bank of England, and every other central bank for that matter, for 2 primary reasons. In fact, there's probably more, but just the 2 primary reasons that come to my mind are, 1, you have all of these fees that banks have to pay to move money around. Central banks are always moving money around, and there's clearing fees, and there's all kinds of transaction fees that go on when you're moving that money around. They pay money to places like FedWire, and there's other places as well that you can look up. Chips, I think, is one of the other ones. But regardless, they pay all this money, and it's very expensive. But with Bitcoin technology, they can actually get rid of all of those fees, make them very, very, very low. So they have a lot less transaction fees, a lot less settlement fees. On top of that, they also have the access to about 2.5 billion people on the planet who don't have a bank account. And you see that 2.5 billion people on the earth who don't have a bank account, that's a lot of money, right? And if you're a CEO of a bank, you're thinking, how do I get new customers, right? And this is one really good way to get access to people who really just don't join the banking system, because you don't have any clearance time. It's instant clearance of everything. Your checks clear instantly, right, in a Bitcoin system, and underneath this system. So you're either accepted or denied. So they can begin to embrace many of these unbanked people with something like this, and it would be a digital currency. My point is this: I think we're going to see a digital currency coming out from one of these central banks probably by the end of the decade, maybe as early as next year. I think they're certainly desiring to have some sort of control over the monetary system more than they do currently. The Bank of Japan, the European Central Bank, and the Fed have all proven that their reach as policymakers is limited. So how do you extend that reach? What you do is you digitize the money, and then what you do is when you create that new Bitcoin rival, you place a little special encryption key in it that only you as the central banker can get into, and you can tinker in through that back door and adjust the levels of the monetary supply to your heart's content. So that's exactly what RSCoin is it's Bitcoin made for central bankers, where they can come in through a back door with a special encryption key and change the level of money or the money supply without having to deal with all this cash that they cannot possibly control, right? They can control it only to a certain extent. This is where central bankers are going, I really believe. And it's something we're watching, and it's something we're paying attention to. It also it doesn't bode so well for Bitcoin. This is pretty devastating news to Bitcoin if the Bank of England, is able to make this actually work. We'll have to see.
Well, that's very grateful. We're grateful here at Reluctant Preppers that you brought that onto our radar, because a lot of our listeners are concerned about the privacy of their own transactions. They also one of the appeals of Bitcoin to some of our viewers has been how it enables peer-to-peer transactions and being outside the central banking system. As just reading on the Telegraph from the UK, says the proto-currency known as RSCoin has vastly greater scope than Bitcoin, which is used for peer-to-peer transactions by libertarians across the world and beyond the control of any political authority. The purpose would be turned upside down. RSCoin would be a tool of state control, allowing the central bank to get a tight grip on the money supply and respond to crises, exactly as you described it. So thank you very much for bringing that to our attention. And I know we're almost out of time. Is there any last thoughts you'd like to leave with our viewers, Jerry?
No, not at all. I mean, I think I just want to say that I really appreciate what you're doing. I think you're doing a great work. And I know you personally. I know you're doing a great work. And I just wish you well. Well,
Jerry Robinson from Follow the Money Daily and author of Bankruptcy of Our Nation, thank you once again for joining us here on Reluctant Preppers to open our eyes to some of these mega events that are unfolding right before our eyes here, and glad we have you here on our side.
It's my pleasure.